I thought I had found the perfect love until I discovered he was the son of my father's greatest enemy. What started as romance turned into war that forced me to choose between love, family, and myself. I never believed in love at first sight. To me, love was supposed to grow slowly, like roots sinking deep into the soil, steady and unshakable. But that belief shattered the day I met Adrian. It was a warm spring afternoon, the kind that carried the smell of blooming jasmines in the air. I had gone to the university library, my arms full of books for the research project that seemed to swallow most of my free time. I wasn't paying attention to where I was going when the inevitable happened. My books slipped, scattering across the marble floor like fallen leaves. Before I could even crouch, a hand reached down, picking them up one by one. "Here, let me help you," a gentle voice said. I looked up and froze. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair that fell just slightly over his forehead. His eyes were the kind of deep brown that seemed to pull you in like secrets hidden at the bottom of a well. He smiled, and for a second my breath caught in my throat. "Thanks," I muttered, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear, suddenly self-conscious. "No problem. Heavy books for someone with such small hands." He teased lightly, handing them back. We exchanged names. Adrian. It rolled off my tongue like it belonged there. From that moment, conversations seemed effortless. We discovered we were both in the same economics course, shared an interest in literature, and even had similar taste in music. I told myself it was just coincidence, but deep down, I felt it was something more. Days turned into weeks. Study sessions in the library became coffee breaks. Coffee breaks turned into walks by the riverside, and soon I found myself waiting for his texts more than I cared to admit. He wasn't like anyone I had ever met. He listened, truly listened, as though every word I said mattered. For the first time in my life, I felt seen, but I also felt guilty. My father had always been strict about who I associated with. "Our family stands alone," he'd say. "We have enemies who would do anything to harm us." Never trust too easily. I had grown up with those warnings ringing in my ears, but with Adrian, those walls seemed to crumble. One evening, after a particularly long study session, he walked me home. The street was quiet, the golden glow of the lampposts casting shadows on the pavement. We stopped just outside my gate. "I really like spending time with you," he admitted, his voice softer than usual. I felt my heart race. "I do too." And then it happened. His hand brushed mine, and when I didn't pull away, he intertwined our fingers. The world seemed to still in that moment. I didn't know then that this innocent touch was the beginning of a story that would tear my life apart. Because Adrian wasn't just the boy who made my heart race. He was the son of my father's greatest enemy. Would you ever risk love if you knew it could tear your family apart? The days after that first touch were a blur of excitement. I felt like I was walking through life with a secret smile, as though the world had suddenly tilted in my favor. Every morning, I woke up to his messages. Short, sweet, thoughtful words that made me feel lighter. But I also knew I couldn't tell my father. My father, Rajan Malhotra, was a man feared as much as he was respected. His empire of business stretched across the city, but so did his grudges. He was the kind of man who believed loyalty was everything, and betrayal deserved no forgiveness. I'd grown up listening to his warnings. The Sharmas are snakes. Never cross paths with them. The name Sharma was etched into my childhood like a curse. My father blamed them for everything. The collapse of a deal, the betrayal of friends, even the stress that had sent my grandfather to an early grave. I had never met a Sharma, never even seen one. Or so I thought, if only I had known. But ignorance is bliss, and in those early days, Adrian was just Adrian. We began to steal moments together. He'd wait for me outside my lectures, and we'd walk along the quiet roads where no one from my family could see us. Sometimes he'd bring me small gifts, a book he thought I'd like, a flower plucked from the campus garden. They weren't grand gestures, but they meant more than anything expensive ever could. "Why do you look at me like that?" I once asked when I caught him staring. "Because I can't believe you're real," he answered simply. And I melted. The secrecy made it all the more intoxicating. Every time I ignored my father's calls while I was with Adrian, I felt like I was betraying him, yet I couldn't stop. My heart had chosen its path, and my mind was too weak to fight it. One afternoon, while sitting at a cafe tucked away in the corner of the city, Adrian grew quiet. His fingers tapped against his cup, his brows furrowed in thought. "What's wrong?" I asked. He hesitated. "It feels like we're hiding too much. Why don't you tell your family about me?" Panic surged through me. I can't, not yet." He studied me for a long moment, and then he smiled sadly. "I get it. Some things take time." I wanted to tell him everything, that my father's hatred of his family was a fire that never went out, that if he knew about Adrian, he'd forbid me from ever seeing him again. But how could I, when I didn't even know the full story myself? So I stayed silent. And in that silence, I didn't realize I was digging us both into a deeper grave. Because secrets, no matter how well hidden, always find a way out. If you were in my place, would you confess the truth to your family early on, or keep your love a secret? Adrian and I lived in a fragile bubble, suspended between happiness and fear. Every laugh, every stolen kiss felt like a rebellion. But at night, when I returned home, reality waited like a shadow. My father had grown more watchful of me. "You've been out late," he remarked one evening as I slipped inside. His eyes, sharp, calculating, rested on me like a weight. "I was at the library." I lied smoothly, though my heart hammered against my ribs. He studied me for a moment longer, then nodded. "Good. Remember, Nana, this family cannot afford distractions. Our enemies wait for any weakness enemies." Always the same word, spoken like a curse. But who were these enemies really? I had grown up on my father's version of the story, but I realized I had never asked for details. That question began to gnaw at me. One evening, as Adrian and I sat by the riverside, I asked him something that had been circling in my mind. "Adrian, your family, what do they do?" He froze just slightly before answering. "Business. Imports, mostly." It was vague, too vague, but he quickly changed the subject, making me laugh, distracting me with a story from his childhood. I let it go, but unease lingered at the edges of my happiness. A week later, I overheard something that nearly made my heart stop. I was passing by my father's study when I heard raised voices. He was on the phone, pacing furiously. "You think the Sharmas can outbid me?" Over my dead body? I won't let their son humiliate this family the way his father once did. I froze in the hallway, the word son echoing in my ears. Could it be? Number. It couldn't. Adrian was kind, gentle, nothing like the monster my father described, but doubt slithered into my heart, poisoning every memory. The next day when we met at our usual cafe, I couldn't hold it in any longer. Adrian, I whispered. What's your last name? He went still. His fingers tightened around his coffee cup. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then, almost too softly, he said it. Sharma. The world tilted. My breath caught in my throat, and I nearly dropped the cup in my hands. I wanted to tell you, he said quickly, his voice desperate. I didn't know how. I was afraid you'd hate me before you even knew me. His words cut deep because they were true. My father had poisoned me with hatred long before I had a chance to decide for myself. But looking at Adrian, at the man who had made me laugh, who had held me when I cried after a hard exam, I couldn't reconcile him with the villain painted in my father's stories. And yet, I couldn't deny it anymore. I had fallen in love with the son of my father's greatest enemy. If you discovered the person you loved was tied to your family's worst enemy, would you walk away or give love a chance? I couldn't sleep that night. Adrian's confession played on repeat in my mind. Sharma. The very name that had been whispered in my house like a curse word. The name that had hardened my father into the ruthless man he was. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, torn between two truths. 1. Adrian was the boy who made me believe in love. 2. He carried the bloodline of the man my father despised most. The next morning, my father summoned me to breakfast. His mood was sharp, as if he sensed the storm inside me. You'll be attending the company dinner tomorrow, he said firmly. I want you at my side. The Sharmas will be there, and I want them to see what a strong family looks like. My blood ran cold. The Sharmas? That meant Adrian. I forced my expression to stay neutral. Of course, Papa. But inside, panic churned. How could I face them? How could I stand beside my father knowing I was already entangled with the enemy's son? Later that day, I met Adrian at the riverside. He looked nervous, almost guilty, but when his eyes met mine, I felt the familiar warmth that made my heart betray my reason. I don't know what to do, I whispered, my voice trembling. My father will never forgive me if he finds out. He took my hands in his. Naina, we can't let them control us. Our parents' war isn't ours. Why should we suffer for mistakes we never made? His words made sense, but they didn't ease the dread clawing at me. It's not that simple. My father lives for this feud. If he finds out about us, he doesn't have to, Adrian interrupted gently. We keep this between us. At least until we're strong enough to face them, I looked into his eyes, and for a moment, the world felt bearable again. He believed in us, in our love. But deep down, a voice whispered, secrets always come out. The next evening, the company dinner was a battlefield dressed in silks and chandeliers. My father stood tall, his hand firm on my shoulder as he introduced me to powerful allies. And then, across the room, I saw him, Adrian. He was dressed in a black suit, looking devastatingly handsome, but his eyes betrayed the same shock that surged through me. He was standing beside his father, the infamous Raghav Sharma. Our gazes locked, and in that moment, I knew hiding was no longer possible. Fate had dragged us into the same arena. My father leaned close and muttered in my ear, stay away from them. They'll poison you with their lies. I swallowed hard, my heart racing, as Adrian's father smiled politely across the room, an expression I now knew was sharpened with decades of hatred. And there I was, caught in the middle. If you were in Naina's place at that dinner, would you risk everything to acknowledge Adrian, or pretend you didn't know him? The glittering chandeliers and polished silverware did little to hide the tension that hung in the air like smoke. Every smile at that dinner felt rehearsed, every handshake laced with silent rivalries. But none of it mattered to me. I could only see Adrian. He stood across the hall, his father by his side. Raghav Sharma's presence was commanding, the kind of man who filled a room with his aura. His laughter was loud, his words sharp, but behind his polished exterior, I sensed the same cold steel I had seen in my father. Two men cut from the same cloth, yet sworn enemies. I forced myself to look away, though my heart screamed to run to Adrian. I sat beside my father as the dinner began, smiling politely at his business associates, nodding when I was supposed to. But every time I risked a glance, Adrian's eyes were on me. It was torture. Halfway through the evening, my father excused himself to speak with a group of investors, leaving me momentarily alone at the table. That was when it happened. Adrian slipped away from his father's side and crossed the room. Are you crazy? I whispered as he slid into the empty seat beside me. I had to see you, he murmured, his voice low and urgent. You're all I've thought about since yesterday. My pulse raced. If my father sees us, I don't care, he cut in. His hand brushed against mine under the table, a fleeting touch that sent shivers through me. Naina, I meant what I said. We can't let them destroy what we have. Before I could answer, a shadow fell over us. I looked up and froze. Raghav Sharma stood there, his eyes narrowing as they flicked from me to Adrian. His smile was tight, dangerous. Adrian, he said evenly, your place is with me. Now Adrian hesitated, his jaw tightening, but then he rose reluctantly. He glanced back at me once, a look heavy with unspoken words before following his father. My breath came in short, uneven gasps. Had Raghav realized? Did he suspect? Moments later, my father returned. He noticed my trembling hands and frowned. Are you all right? Yes, Papa, I lied, forcing a smile. But my mind was spinning. The rest of the evening dragged on like a nightmare. I barely heard the speeches, the clinking of glasses, the laughter around me. My eyes kept darting toward the Sharmas, to Adrian, who looked tense, his shoulders rigid under his father's grip. When the dinner finally ended, and the guests began to leave, Adrian caught my eye from across the hall. He mouthed 2 words before disappearing into the night. Trust me. I clutched those words to my heart like a lifeline, unaware of how fragile that trust would soon become. If you were Adrian, would you risk openly defying your powerful father for love, or keep the relationship hidden? The night after the dinner, I lay awake replaying everything in my mind. The flicker of suspicion in Raghav Sharma's eyes, the steel grip he had on Adrian's shoulder, the way Adrian's lips had shaped those 2 words. Trust me. But trust felt fragile. Over the next few days, Adrian became harder to reach. His texts grew shorter, his replies slower. At first, I convinced myself he was busy. But then, one evening, I found him waiting for me by the riverside, his expression stormy. "We have to be careful," he said in a hushed voice. "My father suspects something." My heart lurched. "About us?" He nodded. He didn't say it outright, but I can tell. He asked why I kept glancing across the hall at the dinner. "He doesn't miss anything, Nana. If he digs deeper—" He trailed off, running a hand through his hair. The fear in his voice was real, but so was the determination in his eyes. "I don't care what he thinks. I won't let him or your father tear us apart." I wanted to believe him. God, I wanted to. But shadows of doubt gnawed at me. That same week, my father summoned me to his study. His tone was deceptively calm, but his eyes were sharp. "Nana," he said, "tell me the truth. Have you been speaking to anyone from the Sharma family?" My blood ran cold. "What? No, Papa, of course not." His gaze lingered on me as if peeling back my skin to see what lay beneath. Finally, he nodded, though I wasn't sure he believed me. "You must never forget, child," he said quietly. "The Sharmas destroyed us once. If you let them near you, they'll destroy you too." His words left me shaken. What had really happened between them? My father had always spoken in fragments, never the full story. But now I needed to know. That night, unable to contain my curiosity, I searched the old family records hidden in the storage room. Dusty files, yellowed papers, photographs long forgotten, and there it was, an article clipped from a newspaper years ago. "Business empire collapses amid betrayal. Malhotra versus Sharma." I read every word. A partnership gone sour. A deal where the Sharmas allegedly undercut my father, leaving him in ruin. Lawsuits, scandals, accusations. It wasn't just business, it was war. But something about the article bothered me. It mentioned missing documents, conflicting testimonies. Nothing was clear. Nothing was certain. For the first time, I wondered, had my father told me the whole truth? Or had he built his hatred on half a story? The thought unsettled me. And yet, as much as I tried to push it away, it grew stronger. I didn't know it then, but the truth was far more twisted than I could have imagined. And finding it would cost me everything. If you discovered your family's feud was built on half-truths, would you confront your parent or protect their version of the story? It didn't take long for the walls to close in. My father had always been sharp, but now his eyes followed me like a hawk. He questioned where I went, who I met, what I was studying. Every lie I spun felt like a thread in a web I couldn't escape. And then it happened. One evening, as I returned from meeting Adrian, I found my father waiting in the living room. His jaw was tight, his fists clenched on the armrest. "Where were you?" His voice was quiet, too quiet. My throat went dry. "Library," I said, as always. His hand slammed onto the table, making me jump. "Stop lying, Nana. Do you think I don't know? Do you think I'm blind?" I froze, my blood draining from my face. "I saw you," he hissed. "With him. With a Sharma." The air left my lungs. He knew. For a moment, I tried to speak, to explain, but the words wouldn't come. My father's eyes burned with fury. "After everything I've told you, after everything they've done to us, you dare bring shame to this family by sneaking around with the enemy's son? Papa, please!" I choked, my voice trembling. "Enough!" His voice thundered through the room. "You will never see him again. Do you understand? Never." Tears blurred my vision, but somewhere inside me, a spark of defiance lit. "I love him," I whispered, barely audible. His face hardened into stone. "Then you are no daughter of mine." The words cut deeper than any blade. I ran to my room, locking the door behind me as sobs tore through my chest. My father's rage echoed in my ears, but so did my own truth. I couldn't let Adrian go. The next day, I met him in secret, desperation burning in my veins. "He knows," I confessed, clutching Adrian's hands as if they were my lifeline. "He saw us. He forbade me from seeing you." Adrian's jaw tightened. "And my father has been on my back too. He says the Malhotras are poison. He doesn't trust me to even leave the house anymore." We stared at each other, trapped between two towering walls of hatred. "So what do we do?" I whispered. Adrian looked at me with a fierceness I'd never seen before. "We fight. If they want to destroy us, let them try. But I won't lose you, Nina. Not to him, not to anyone." His words lit fire in my heart, but fear clung stubbornly. I knew my father. He wouldn't stop at forbidding me. He would burn the world down before letting me defy him. And for the first time, I wondered, how much destruction would our love leave in its wake? Would you risk your family's love and protection to fight for forbidden love, or would you walk away to keep peace? Defying my father was like stepping into a storm. The air around me seemed heavier, charged with an energy I couldn't escape. He stopped speaking to me altogether, his silence colder than any words of anger. Every time we crossed paths at home, his eyes cut through me like knives, but his silence didn't mean surrender. It meant he was planning. I realized this when Adrian called me one night, his voice tight with fury. "My father knows everything," he said. "Not just about us, about the night we met at the riverside, the cafe, even the dinner. He has people following me, Nana. Watching every movie, my stomach twisted. Adrian. And that's not all," he continued, his voice breaking. "He told me he'll ruin your family. He said loving me has given him the perfect weapon." I pressed a hand to my chest, struggling to breathe. My father's empire, his pride, was I the crack that would bring it all down? The next day, my worst fear came true. My father stormed into my room, his face dark with rage. "They've already started," he spat. "The Sharmas undercut our deal with the Singhs. Do you know why? Because of you. Because you let their son into your life like a fool." Tears welled in my eyes. "Papa, please, it's not like that. Adrian isn't his father. Enough." His voice shook the walls. "From this day forward, you are forbidden from leaving this house without my permission. If you think you can betray me and still walk free, you are mistaken." I felt the ground slip beneath my feet, trapped, isolated, but even then, my heart rebelled. That night, I climbed out of my window and ran to Adrian. When I reached him, he pulled me into his arms as if he'd been holding his breath waiting. But the relief was short-lived. His father's men lurked nearby, their eyes cold, their presence a constant reminder that we were pawns in a larger game. Adrian held my face in his hands. "They want us to break, Nana. They think we'll choose them over each other. But we can't. We can't give them that victory." I nodded, though my heart trembled. What if we're wrong? What if loving each other destroys everything? He pressed his forehead to mine. Then at least we'll go down together. His words should have comforted me, but instead they filled me with dread. Because somewhere deep inside, I knew love wasn't the only thing at stake anymore. This was war, and wars always left scars. If both families were using you as weapons against each other, would you keep fighting for love or walk away to stop the war? The cracks were no longer invisible. They were gaping wounds. My father's business bled under the Sharma's assault, while whispers of betrayal spread through the city. People spoke of the forbidden affair between a Malhotra daughter and a Sharma son. My secret love had become ammunition for their war. And then came the night that broke me. I had managed to sneak away again, desperate to see Adrian. He met me in the abandoned courtyard behind the old theater, his face drawn and tired. For the first time, he didn't rush to embrace me. "What's wrong?" I asked, fear clutching my chest. His jaw tightened. "My father confronted me. He said the only reason he hasn't destroyed your father completely is because of me." I frowned. "Because of you? He thinks I can manipulate you. That being close to you gives us leverage." His voice cracked. And when I denied it, he laughed. He said he doesn't care if I love you as long as it benefits him. The words sliced through me like glass. "Adrian, are you saying he's using you?" His silence was louder than any answer. I stepped back, my vision blurring. The ground beneath me seemed to tilt. So all of this, what if he's right? What if being with you is the reason my family is falling apart? His eyes widened. "Naina, no. Don't you dare believe him. I love you. That's the only truth that matters." But doubt gnawed at me. My father's warnings, Raghav's smirk, the sudden collapse of deals, it all lined up too perfectly. And then, as if fate wanted to shatter me completely, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. I opened it and felt my world crumble. A photo of Adrian, sitting with his father, smiling, signing documents. My father's words rang in my ears. "The Sharmas will use you. They'll poison you with lies." I looked up at Adrian, my hands trembling. "What is this?" I whispered, showing him the screen. He froze. "Naina, it's not what it looks like." "Not what it looks like?" My voice broke, rising in pitch. "You said you weren't part of his games. You said—" "I had no choice," he pleaded. "If I didn't sign, he would have destroyed everything." I was trying to protect us, but I couldn't hear him. My heart was pounding too loudly, drowning out every word. The boy I loved, the boy I defied my father for, was now the image of betrayal. Tears streamed down my face as I whispered the words I never thought I'd say. "I don't know if I can trust you anymore." Adrian reached for me, but I pulled away. And in that moment, something inside me shattered. Love, loyalty, trust, everything. If you were betrayed by the one person you risked everything for, would you forgive them or walk away forever? I didn't leave my room for days. The photo of Adrian sitting beside his father haunted me, replaying in my mind like a cruel reminder of my own foolishness. My father's silence was suffocating, but I could feel his triumph. To him, this was proof. The Sharmas were snakes, and I had been their prey. But my heart wasn't so simple. No matter how many times I tried to hate Adrian, memories of his laughter, his warmth, his whispered promises tangled themselves around my chest. Love and pain, two chains, binding me in opposite directions. On the fourth night, I received a letter. No phone call, no text, just a folded sheet of paper slipped under my door. "Naina, I know you don't trust me right now. I can't blame you, but please, meet me one last time. Behind the old theater, midnight. If you don't come, I'll understand. But if you do, I'll tell you everything." Adrian I held the letter in shaking hands, my heart thundering. Part of me screamed to burn it to stay safe, but another part, the part still chained to him, couldn't resist. That night, I went. He was waiting, eyes shadowed, face tired but determined. When he saw me, relief flooded his features. "I thought you wouldn't come," he whispered. I crossed my arms, holding myself together. "This is the last time, Adrian. Say what you came to say." He stepped closer, his voice raw. The photo, it was real. But the truth wasn't in the picture. My father forced me to sign those documents. He said if I didn't, he'd bury your family completely. I thought, maybe if I played along, I could buy us time. Tears burned in my eyes. "And you didn't think to tell me?" "I was trying to protect you." His voice cracked. "I've been caught between him and my love for you, and I'm losing on both sides." I looked at him, really looked at him. The boy who had picked up my books that first day. The boy who had made me believe in a future beyond my father's shadows. Could I trust him? Or was this just another layer of lies? Behind me, I suddenly heard footsteps. I spun around. My father. His eyes blazed with fury. "So, it's true. Even after everything, you still choose him." Adrian stepped forward, placing himself between us. "With all due respect, sir, she's not yours to control. She's not mine either. She belongs to herself." The world seemed to freeze. My father's rage, Adrian's defiance, my own trembling heart, it all collided in that single moment. And I knew. For too long, I had been a daughter, a lover, a pawn in a feud that wasn't mine. But now, I had to be something else. Myself. "I'm done choosing between you," I whispered, tears streaking my face. "This war isn't mine. If loving him means losing you, Papa, then so be it. And Adrian, if trusting you means risking everything, I'll risk it. But from now on, I live on my own terms." Silence followed, heavy and unyielding. Neither man spoke, but something shifted. For the first time, the choice was mine, and it would define me forever. If you were Naina, would you choose love and defy your family or walk away from both to claim your own freedom?